And welcome back to episode 5 of Rematch Goalie 101. I hope everyone had an amazing new year as this is being recorded the first week after the new year 2026. I hope you had an amazing 2025 and hopefully things will be looking up for the Rematch community up in 2026. But for now, as always, I am your host, Skyline, and we will be getting into something that was actually requested to me by someone in the Rematch community. I thought I have covered this a little bit, I guess, over different segments over the past 4 episodes, but it was specifically asked for me to make a video specifically on this topic. So I thought, what way to start off the new year rather than to go ahead and deep dive into this, and that is going to be field awareness. Now I know we last week we talked about hand-eye coordination, or I guess not last week because last week was New Year's Day, and the week before that was Christmas. So to anyone that celebrates that as well, I hope you had a Merry Christmas. But the week before Christmas, that's when we talked about hand-eye coordination and kind of working on how to, being able to react a little bit quicker and some methods that I use in order to keep your reaction time up and all that kind of stuff. But I guess a big thing that also kind of comes with it is being able to have a strong field awareness. You can't really track the ball if you don't know what's going on around you. So let's go ahead and deep dive into that. Like I said, when it comes to field awareness, there's a couple things I would say to keep in mind. Obviously, being aware at all times. I mean, it kind of there implied in the name, field awareness, being aware. Uh, but you might be looking at me and being like, okay, so how do I do that? And that is exactly what we are going to go ahead and get into. If I can pull up the board here. So going into the board as we've kind of done in the past, you know that there are certain things that we can't fully discuss just in this. I'll do my best to make it work, and if I need to load up the game to maybe show something, we'll go over that if that time comes. But for now, we're gonna go ahead and just talk about the board itself. So again, we're gonna go back into it as we're this number one keeper here, this purple dot, and the keeper, let's say, is up here. Now, with how Rematch has become, obviously the meta switch up a lot. We've seen a lot more happen with your striker, your first man. Usually, you'll see sometimes it's either 3 people in the box while your striker stays up and presses, or you'll see the 2-2 kind of staying as is. But I would say even in competitive, a 2-2 is, it still happens decent amount, but it's not the main thing. I would usually say you still have your striker, the main guy, up. Even if it's some random who wants to play striker, they'll usually still stay up and try to keep pressure on the keeper with how it is nowadays. So we'll just assume for now that's how we're playing. So let's say the keeper is back on his line, just grab the ball. We have them trying to come upfield and take space. We're going to move these guys back a little bit. And a lot of the time, you also see the striker stay more middle of the box now instead of on the edges, which is regular with a 2-2. But like I said, we're kind of disassociating from that now. So going on to that, let's say, for example, we have 3 pressing the keeper here who has the ball, so he throws it out to 3. So now you're in a technical 4v3 situation because you have your striker trying to press the keeper when he had the ball and he's forced to back off. So this is usually going to allow for the play to start for the opposing team. Now, as a keeper, what should you be looking for? Number one thing I tell people all the time, I think I said this in the previous episode, always, always, always use your mini map. All right? So for me, let's say, for example, we are focusing, like we talked about last week with hand-eye coordination, making sure we keep ourselves, like, our eyes on the ball for the majority of the time. So our field of view is going to be like here because we're looking at this guy. So we can see one in front of us, right? We see that he's defended, and we also see that the ball is behind them. So in this case, our mini map, I'm gonna just draw it on here, even though it's like in the bottom corner, like in our bottom right corner. I'll kind of like replicate that. So here's our mini map, and you'll see like the the line for the goal box here, and we'll say like the goalie line is here, the white line, I guess. So you'll see like a dot here for the opponent. You'll see a dot here for your team player. And then obviously what's off screen to you is going to be over here. So you're going to see the dot here for your teammate, dot here for the opponent, and then very far, dot for your teammate, dot for the opponent. As we can kind of see it replicated by what I'm showing with the 1 over here, 2 over here, 4 over here. So for example, let's take for a second that this is the setup. So now what will happen is we know for a fact that this 3 guy is looking for a pass. And even if he takes it up himself, that gives your teammate more time to recover and get back, which we can kind of see because by the time if he starts dribbling this way, your teammate will enter your field of vision. So you can kind of, assume about he's going to try to press it. But let's say, for example, we're sitting in the box and we see that the pass is going to come in. So we know our biggest threat is right here. Number 1. He's the main striker. He's standing at the top of the box. He's going to be waiting for either a run call or if they're not in comms, which again, we're going to assume that they're not, then usually what's going to happen is he'll just start like coming towards the ball a little bit or might go out to the side just trying to get the ball to his feet. So in this case, let's say he starts running towards the ball, dragging our defender up with him, like he wants a pass to his feet. Now, if you're only paying attention to what's happening directly in front of you, what you're going to see is, oh, okay, so he's probably going to play it to one's feet, right? That's the most obvious thing. It's what we're paying attention to. It's our line of sight. There's not really, he's not that open, but still, that's what's happening in front of our face. But if we remember from, again, our mini map that's in the bottom corner over here, you would also remember that you have a threat on the back side, on the back post. That would be number 2. He is being covered, but that does not mean he can't get the ball. Because let's say he uses his extra effort, like he's stacked with 2, and let's say he uses his extra effort while this guy comes in. Now he has space, top box. We're looking over here, and that ball 3 realizes this, sends it in. By the time we recognize this ball coming in and we try to switch, we're going to be in an awkward spot to where now we're forced to try to turn, readjust our focus, and then 2's putting a shot on our net. And then not only do we have to readjust our focus to look at where the ball is and where 2 is, but we have to then determine which way to dive for where the shot is going. So this is why we are going to prioritize, I'm going to erase the mini map as well, is why we are going to be looking at said mini map in being able to remember in the back of our brains, even though we're watching this. So again, 1 pushes up and 1, we still have in the back of our mind, we know that there's that guy, that back post. We know that there's 4 that he can switch to if he needs to. We know that the goalie is still a threat because if 3 comes back over here and this 3 still has the ball, then goalie can then take space upfield, get the ball, and then try to throw a pass in the box. This is what field awareness is. Being aware of every single thing that can possibly happen at any given time. It's a very, I would say, hypocritical in a way, just because whenever I use it with a lot of other games, I say this about Rocket League a lot, which people look at me and think it's kind of cringe. Same thing with this. Every competitive video game is its own version of chess. Again, it's cringe. You can call it whatever you want, but it truly is, because there's a ton of different moving pieces all the time. Obviously, chess, it's more slow paced, even with I guess fast chess or whatever it's called, time chess, I guess. You're moving piece by piece, but you're having to think ahead about what could happen, right? Like, he might move his knight here, he might move his queen here. So we have these situations in the back of our brain to where, like, okay, we know this can happen, we know this can happen. What is the most likely outcome to happen? So in this situation, again, 2 gonna enter on the front post. But because we have that field awareness, because in the back of our minds, we looked at our mini map and we were like, okay, we knew there was that guy back post. 3 throws that. So instead of kind of being jump scared by the situation at hand. Now we're like, okay, we know exactly where this ball is going because we remember there was this guy here already there. So by the time you turn, you're already aware of this. You're running to this. By the time this ball meets two for that shot, you're already there for the catch. So again, we'll deep dive a little bit more into it, which I know I've used that word a lot. Uh, but field awareness is one of those things where there is a lot to talk about. Like I said, I'm gonna try to do it in the shortest amount of time possible because I like to keep the videos as short as possible. I think the longest one I did was episode 2, which was like 45 minutes, something like that. So I'm gonna try to keep it as short as possible for the time being. That plus I got stuff I gotta do today. Which to anyone that does watch this on YouTube, I stream it. I stream these episodes every Thursday now, usually around 5:30 ish EST. So I would just tune into that. You can come in here live, like Livix and Dupe currently are in the chat. I see y'all. And yes, Dupe, I know it's not cringe at all. I've heard people whenever I say that though, they've kind of called it that way. So that's why I kind of have to say that I'd be hesitant to say it, I guess. um, but yeah, no, people don't realize how much goes into a thought process for every position on the field, whether it's your goalkeeper, your striker, whatever. Being able to place yourself in the right spot and then do the most with that space, or being able to create more space and then taking advantage of that. It all comes down to how you yourself realize everything that's going on the field, who has the ball, and what will happen within the next couple minutes or even seconds. What will happen in the next couple milliseconds, if anything. What you do can change the outcome, right? Even if you're off ball here, like I said, because one comes towards this ball and gives two that opening on the back, that is something that a lot of people as a striker wouldn't even realize to do. They're trying to bait in, right? To see, okay, our teammate's going to drag with us. Now we have this guy running in back post. So goalkeeper, getting back to the goalkeeper side, we always have to be aware of that extra step, right? Anything can happen in this situation. If anything, one could be the one that decides to go back, right? They run out to the corner and come straight back, and two decides to run up. So now three has two options. He can either throw the pass to one in the box, or he can hit two on the run inside and then let two take it up. So there's all these variables that we have to keep in mind, but reading the field is what's going to help us stay more calm, more relaxed. If anyone watched last week's, I always say last week's episode 4. If you watch episode 4, whenever I did the in-game play of like me actually playing the game, you saw in the first match I was just trying to talk and like not focus whatsoever. I was getting really jumpy, and even though we won that game, I think we won it 3-1 if my memory serves correct, or maybe 3-0, something like that. I was trying to pre-jump everything pretty much. Like I thought I already knew what was going to happen before it happened. And then we get into game 2, I decide I'm not going to talk as much. I'm going to stay relaxed and calm. And we lost that game 1-0, but I had 5 saves because I stayed calm. I made rational decisions, and then I was able to easily understand what they were doing and where they were going to try to shoot. And then by the second they shot, I was able to react to it because I stayed calm. So that's what you have to do in these situations. You might see people flooding the box. You might see 2, and sometimes you'll even see 3. I've seen certain situations where, again, we'll say 3 just forced the ball. Our 3 forced the ball from the goalkeeper to this teammate up here, and now we have 3 in the box. This is where keepers, I would say, tend to panic the most. The more people you have in your box, the more you are going to panic. But remember what we talked about with the mini map and what we talked about with being able to read what's happening in those couple milliseconds that can change the game. This guy in the middle is going to be our main man. If you're a goalkeeper, your biggest threat is always the middle, PK spot, because that is the angle they are going to have the most success from. If they're shooting anywhere inside this window, then let's say 2 shoots from here, now they still have an open net to where they can shoot front post or back post, and it is a quick shot. Right? They have a better angle of attack. But let's say they're outside of this box. So let's say, for example, 2's the one standing in the box. Our one guy over here sags off, and now 1 gets this ball. So that ball gets thrown into 1. Now our angle is we're playing in this middle between the close post in the middle, maybe a little bit on the edge. Now that shot comes in, you realize how much less of an angle of opportunity or attack that guy has because it's outside of this box. So that is where field awareness also comes to play. We have to realize wherever the ball is getting sent, is it in our threat? We'll call this box a threat. We'll call it BT, box threat. Is it in your BT? Is it in your box threat? Or is it outside of it to where it's easier to read? So let's say, for example, they decide to try run some play. Let's say this is an actual team now. Instead of moving on to randoms, let's say we're in an actual competitive setting. Because I know a lot of people that watch this, you aren't only casual players. I know some of them are actually some of the other players that I'll end up playing against in these tournaments for MRC and MRL and all these other games. Which I know I shouldn't be helping the ops, I guess, if that's how you want to call it. I shouldn't be helping my opponent. But like I said, I'm here to make content for y'all that y'all can, digest and use in your own gameplay, even if it is against me. So let's say they're running a play, right? Always look for the moving pieces. Again, we're going to go back to the chess analogy. In chess, you're always thinking steps ahead, but what comes first in chess? The pieces that move, right? You always determine what you're going to do based off what piece moves next. You're thinking in your head, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen, right? 1 can move first, 2 can move first, 4 can move first. But it doesn't matter until you see that first piece move. So in my head, I'm watching that ball. Like I said, I'm watching the ball, keeping an eye on it, while also keeping a track on 1, 2, and 4. If I can't see them in my field of view, then I'm immediately looking at my mini-map to see if there's any movement. So I'm doing all of this while trying to keep an eye to make sure that I'm reading this play. So let's say I see 1 run up immediately. If I'm watching and I immediately see 1 start his movement, in my head that tells me it's a relay either going to 2 or 4. So now I know for a fact, even if 1 gets this ball, it is not a threat. Okay, there is no possible way if he gets this that is going to be a shot on target. So I'm not saying ignore 1, but I'm saying this is where your focus should be turning onto 2 and to 4. Those are your 2 main threats. 2 is going to try to take more space. 4 is going to try to take more space. Now you have to decide who is going to be the pass option. So let's say they do a relay. 1 ends up getting this ball, and he ends up throwing it top box. Remember, we're still keeping an eye on the ball from last week. Our eye is always on the ball, but we're aware that 2 and 4 are now trying to take space in the box. So our 1 followed. Let's say our 2 followed, our 4 followed. Now 2 is on this. Now there's multiple things he can do with this situation. He can either A, shoot this, the most obvious of all the choices. He can either B, shoot it off backboard for his teammate 4, because now there's that threat to where if he shoots this and I dive or I jump, 4 can come in and shoot it if one of my teammates doesn't get there before him. Or 3, he can take a touch that ends up leading it to 4 or himself to bait in 2 to jump and then either take the shot or let 4 take the shot. So shot, backboard, or our touch. Again, there's many things that can happen, but those are the most likely things to happen. So because we read the field, because we knew what's coming in with the pass, we were standing back on our line, we're waiting, and we saw 2 get the ball. Now this is where it comes into play with like true awareness. The number 1 thing you should be doing in this situation is looking for the animation that 2 does. If 2 is doing a shot animation, now that the ball's come to them, stay back on your line and be ready for either the shot to go on target or the backboard to hit. You know it's not going to be a touch to forward, so you can immediately assume that you should be ready to make a save at worst case scenario. That shot goes on. But if you see them going for a header touch, like if you see them instead of, going for a bicycle, you see them going for that little animation where their head like goes down and immediately up to take the header touch, then you can stay on your line and stay calm in the moment knowing that he's taking a touch. You do not need to get antsy. And then look at 4. If 2, I'm not saying look at 4 the whole time. By the way, I should clarify that. I'm saying just take a quick peek at 4. Is 4 moving in closer, getting ready to take a touch, or is 4 standing still, waiting in that again, still waiting in the box, that BT, the box threat. Because right now, 2's main option is if they take this touch and 2 dives, they're most likely going to shoot this. There's no reason they shouldn't. But if 4 is running this way, that touch was most likely for them. But either way, guess what? That shot is coming from a lot closer window than you would have expected. Like, even if 4 ends up taking this, he's still going to be in this area. So no matter what, your field of view, because you knew that 4 was coming in, or even if you know 4 standing over here and 2 has this ball, you still know that your threat right now relies on this area rather than the entire box, which closes down a lot because all you have to have then is good hand-eye coordination, which, again, we talked about last episode. Just wait for the shot to come in and play for it. All these plays, even if there's only 2 in the box, okay, you might be saying, okay, what happens if they're just doing a traditional 2-2, right? So we don't have 3 in the box. You know, we're still playing competitive, or not competitive, I guess ranked. We're playing ranked. So let's set back up on the edges. I'm gonna keep the box there, but let's say our goalkeeper's taking the ball up, and let's say we are playing the traditional 2-2 now. So we're taking this ball up. Or the opponent's taking the ball up, excuse me. And again, we know someone's on our edge. We have 2 people on our edges. So again, we're keeping eye on the ball, but we're keeping track of our mini map as well. We're watching for any movement. The second that we start seeing movement, that's assuming we know where it's going to go. We can assume, but remember, it's not always going to be the number one thing that is going to happen. So let's say now that 2 moves in top box while the goalie still has something, still has the ball. So now they are in our box threat. They are our main threat. 1 is still standing over here though. Now let's say our 1 decides to double team top box because, again, that box is the most important thing to defend. Anything outside of that for a keeper should realistically be an easy save. And if it isn't, it's at least easier than it is if it's coming in that area, that PK area. So let's say now we have 2 people covering this. This guy's still our main threat, but we know he's not as much of a threat because he's being double covered. Now, to anyone who is a defender in this chat, or anyone that's watching this video as a defender, I will say doing this is understandable. If you and your teammate can coordinate to one guy covers out, if this guy is running out, or running the other way, he pushes the other way, then the other guy covers it. But a lot of the time what I'll see defenders do, which is terrible for a goalkeeper, and if any goalkeepers are here in the chat, you might agree with me, is that if this happens, right, you have 2 people covering and that pass goes in and they throw it up and it gets through, your vision is screwed. I'm talking about by the time that you can see that ball finally get through 2 defenders, it's already too late to react. So that's just basically a free goal if they had a decent shot. That is the number one thing as a goalie that always makes it harder. Is not the fact that the opponents are making it hard, is that your teammates who are supposed to be on your side, your defenders, are blocking your vision to where you can't see where that ball is going until it's too late. So in this situation, whenever that's the case, that is when we have to be aware again of animations, and we have to just do our best at keeping our eye on the ball. It's the hardest thing to do because sometimes it might phase through the player, but we always have to keep our eye on the ball. So let's say it's the situation. That ball ends up coming in, and again, we're still aware of 1 because we looked at our mini map. We know 1 is wide open in this situation, but they're not as much of a threat. So let's say their goalkeeper sees this and he throws that ball downfield. So now he takes it at his feet, and defender should step to this. But let's say they stay on 2 because, again, that box threat, that is the most important thing in this entire scenario. Let's say they are more worried about that box threat, that pass coming in, rather than 1 just taking a shot from here. Now, the goalkeeper, again, we're now turning our attention to 1. We are still aware of 2 being in this situation. We know that he's being double covered, but he's still a threat. He's in the worst possible spot for us to play. So we watch for the shot. We watch 1 try to take a shot. All right, let's say 1 takes the shot. You're already ready for this. You're putting yourself in a good position. Free save. I'm going to be honest, it's a free save. Because again, his angle, he's outside that box threat. Even if he gets a little bit closer, that's still a bad angle for him to take a shot from to where we can react with ease if we're putting ourselves in the right spot, which again is going to be halfway in between here and the middle of the net. Maybe a little bit more towards the edge the closer they come in. So start at the middle. The further of an angle it is, so if they're starting like all the way out here, then yeah, be in that middle spot. But the more they come out this way, you want to move yourself back just little by little. And I'm not saying off the line. I'm just drawing that way so you can see the arrow. Stay on the line. But we always be aware that, and then let's say they do go for the pass, then we already knew 2 was there in the box threat. And then this is the situation where if there's 1 in the box, so let's say, for example, maybe 1 didn't get this ball, right? They're out on the edge, and now it's a 1v1 in the box, and keeper comes up, or even 3. Let's say the press happens, and 3 has the ball, and now it's a 1-on-1. This is where we take space now. We know for a fact that our most likely opportunity coming from the opponents is going to be this pass into the box. So we are going to step up into the box threat and close it off before it can happen. If we see, again, use their mini map though, because we know someone's back here. If we see them starting to run in, we back off immediately because then now there's 2 threats. But if there is only 1 singular threat, we can step up and forward dive if we have to. Again, watch for animation though. If they go for the shot, let's say that pass comes in, they go for the shot, then we can dive straight at it and be fine. We're already on that ball by the time it gets shot. But let's say we see him go for that header touch again. Now we're in a situation to where do we stay up on this ball because we're already up? Or do we take our time to back off and make it easier for us because he took a touch and it slowed him down to where he now has control, but we can now put ourselves in a better spot to make the save because we are not forcing ourselves up to where he has more space to play the corners of the net. Because a lot of people nowadays, you might be like, okay, well, if you're in front of him, though, you're covering like all the space in the world, right? Because his angle is here to here, and if you're blocking that, then you're there, right? You're like covering his only path that he has, even if he tries to go corners. But a lot of the times, what they'll do is they'll do a sidestep and like a pass. Ooh, let's not move the box. Like he'll do a sidestep and then a shot, and a keeper can't react to that, or they'll do a side to side. That's why it's easier for you to just stay on your line in these situations if they take that header touch and trust your defender to hold off. And even if they don't, if they try to take a shot, then you can recover for it and just make a quick diving save. So it comes down to a lot of situations. Like 1v1s, you want to step up more. 2v2s, or if there's 2 in the box, then you have to be aware of that second man at all times. Again, eye on the ball, but always be aware of every possible threat that's in your box. So just the short version of it, keep an eye on your mini map. Again, remember it's like chess. Anything can happen. Always think steps ahead of your opponents. Look for that first moving piece of the board, I guess, in order to kind of tell where the opponents are trying to end up, taking space. Like obviously, if 2 moves up here, you realize that someone behind is going to try to take space in the middle. Always be aware of what's about to happen. Which again, it's funny to say because this is a field awareness thing, and that's what I'm trying to teach y'all. But you get what I'm saying. So finally, the last thing I want to talk about in today's episode is we've talked about being on defense the entire time, but I do want to throw in a little bit of offense because there still are goalkeepers that go out, play. Let's say we're now this blue one that have open space, and we need to be aware of like where we need to put the ball. Obviously, with your team, again, if you're in a competitive tournament, like with comms, you'll have play set up like we said earlier with like the relay where 2 will run at us and we throw it right at them. That's very, the dumbed down version of it, I would say, is like you already know what's going to happen because you're calling in comms. But let's say we're in ranked. We always need to be aware, if we're dribbling this up, of these guys here, the wingers or the striker, whatever. Because remember, with how this meta has kind of shifted, a lot of players who are playing striker or winger are going to be coming up more to take space and like try to create as much pressure as possible on the goalkeeper to try to force them to make a threat or steal the pass so they can have a free net. Because obviously, if your goalkeeper's out of the box with no gloves, it's a lot easier for the opponent to take a shot on. So you always, always, always are aware of 3 and 4, the guys on the sides. If you're throwing a threat into the box, then always be aware of being, if you have a good pass, or if you're trying to throw a pass in there, immediately run back or have one of your defenders switch with you. Because I've had it in tournaments where players like will try to set up a relay and they immediately know what's going on and cut it off. So by the time it happens and they get that ball, they just shoot immediately and it's over my head and I can't get back from that far out. So that is why we have to be aware of, even on offense, of, is this player trying to cut off my pass? Is this player going to tackle me before I can get the pass off? Or do I have space coming out of the box, or do I need to pass it immediately? Which, if anyone saw in my Mogs video, or if you watch the replay analysis on my channel that I posted back in season 0, you would see a lot, like, I'm immediately looking upfield on that short timer, with that long timer. If I have that 7-second timer, I immediately look upfield to see if there's anyone open to create a counter attack. Which, again, that comes down to field awareness. If that one's been spoken more in depth, if you haven't seen the analysis or Mox's video, please check that out. That is a good tool in order to also look into field awareness a little bit more, which is maybe why I thought we've kind of talked about this situation more often. But even if you haven't seen those videos, it's just, if you have a long timer, use the first 2-3 seconds to look upfield and see if your teammate's open. If they are and you have space, get it out to them immediately. If you can use your extra effort to be able to get more power on it to send it further downfield, then do that. If you use those first couple seconds though and you see that there's no one open downfield, then immediately just look for your short option. If you have the short option, play it. If you don't have a short option because they're all covered, then take it upfield and create your own space. Same thing with a short timer. If it's short timer, for like the millisecond you get that ball, you should be looking upfield. And if you don't see something immediately, always, always, always look for the short pass. If you're being covered, there's always a short pass open, or there should be, as long as they're taking spacing correctly. So look for it. And if they don't have the short pass available, then just, again, take it yourself. 30 seconds seems like a short time, but it is also a long time depending on how you read the situation. So other than that, that is pretty much everything I have to say. Well, if anyone in the chat has any questions whatsoever, this is now where I'm going to open up, because we're already 30 minutes into this, and I definitely could go more into depth about it, but I have stuff I got to do as well. So if anyone has any questions whatsoever in the chat, feel free to drop them. If not, then that will be the end of episode 5. And like I said, again, I hope all y'all had an amazing, amazing New Year and Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas. Sorry, I'm trying to look around my microphone. But yeah, Patey, no, I cannot. No. Get up my line. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But yeah, that is that will be it for episode 5. And if no one has any other questions, okay, Patey, what's your question? Do you have an actual question? Yes, Dunsford. Here, exclamation point YouTube. That is going to be it. That's where I post everything. And if you haven't seen yet, I have a Carl Weezer Christmas album. I know it's a little bit past Christmas, but you can go enjoy that. Yeah, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure, Patey. All right, since no one has any actual questions except for Dunsford, I will probably end up posting this video later tonight. Like I said, I got other stuff got to do. But to anyone watching this on YouTube, like I said earlier in the stream, we will be doing this every Thursday that I am available, which hopefully should be every Thursday from now on, now that it's no longer holidays. Every Thursday, 5 p.m. EST or 5:30 p.m. EST. Join the Discord, exclamation point Discord, or again, if you're watching on YouTube, it's in the description. Just go into the description and join the Discord. I'll post whenever I'm streaming, and you can be in here live and ask questions. But other than that, yeah, that is going to be it for today's stream, and I hope y'all have a good one. Closing thoughts is just always be aware of your threats. Like I said, remember that BT, that box threat. Who's in that box is going to be your biggest threat, but always be aware of if there's anyone else in the big box, not just that little tiny square box that I drew in the PK. Let's think about the whole box. Is there anyone that can enter that space whenever a pass comes in? So always, always, always use your mini map. Mini map is going to be your number one guide to having good field awareness, and then being able to put yourselves in better spots as well. If you haven't yet, I also have a positioning video. That was episode 2, which is the one I talked about probably the most. Uh, so go check that out if you haven't yet, because that video ties in very heavily when it comes to field awareness as well. And like I said, if you haven't watched the Moggs video, the replay analysis, just type in Moggs, and he has a video of me. If you go back, it's a picture of a Shigo character diving for a ball. That's for me. Or you can go into my YouTube and just watch the analysis of the game I did. But other than that, that is officially everything I have to say. And I hope y'all all have a good one. I hope your 2026 is amazing. But until next time, as always, peace, y'all.